That's a nice big mug of beer.
That is.
Yeah, it's so I'm a real lightweight, super lightweight. And so when I go on podcasts, a lot of them are late. This is late at night for me. I go to bed at like 9:30.
Gotcha.
Because I'm
good to know.
An old woman. I'm like the oldest 38-year-old you'll ever meet. And so my friend owns a non-alcoholic brewery, Athletic Brewing, which you can get.
Oh yeah.
Like, they're everywhere. I went to high school with their founder.
Seriously.
He dated my sister.
Wow. A small world, huh?
Yeah. And he's super nice. So I was like, hey, I sometimes will go on like shows or I'll do stuff and like I want to drink a beer, but I don't really want to drink a beer. And a case of Athletic showed up at my house this morning. So
oh, beautiful.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So now I'm like I'm all in.
So what are you drinking? So
this is their they just made it year round. This is their hazy IPA, which is a Free Wave. It's good. Nice. Yeah, So I like their beer a lot. Like I remember when he started, I was like, really? Like, I don't know, but like, man, do they have a great business model? They treat their employees really well. They're awesome. Like, they have one of my comics in their tasting room.
Awesome.
That is awesome. And what a great place to start.
That's a great
They treat
place
their
to
employees
start.
well.
Exactly.
They treat their employees super. He was like, I want to hire more. He like emailed me once out of the blue. He's like, I want to hire more women. What do I do? Like, who do I contact? Nice. And I was like, they do a lot of, he does a lot of stuff. They do a lot of stuff with beer culture.
Yeah.
Did a collaboration with them and Green Bench. Yeah. They're
cool.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'm
very cool.
Wishing them all the best. So,
everybody's probably wondering at this point who we're talking to. This is M. Sauter.
Oh, yeah. Hi. Hello.
And this is Beers with Nigel. Go for it, Nick.
Here we go.
We'll be right back.
Beers with Nigel is poured for you by Dire Oil Graphics, promotional products and design. They cover your brand bumper to bumper with graphic design, promo products, and print. See what Dire Oil Graphics can build for you at direoil.com. That's DYEROIL.com.
Welcome to Beers with Nigel, guys. I'm Nigel. That's Nick.
I'm that other guy.
Welcome to the show. This week, we have M. Sauter, all the way from Connecticut, as we like to call it here. We don't call it that here, but it's Connecticut. I had
the phonetic spelling.
Well, I had a sweatshirt one time. It was one of those cheap stores because it was spelled wrong. So, and it was Connecticut. So, anyway, welcome, M. How are you?
I'm well. How about yourself? Thanks for having me.
Awesome. No, thanks for coming. Why don't you tell people who M. Sauter is real quick?
So I'm M. I do a website online called Pints Panels. So I don't review beer anymore. I used to review beer. So if you go on back into like the archive, you can find some really wacky stuff where I don't know what I'm talking about.
I already like this.
It's not pretty.
It appeals to me.
It's not great. But in 2019, I switched to doing visual beer education. So I tackle beer styles. I draw bottles of beers or cans of bottles and beers I really like. I just draw about beer, and I post them every day on social media. There's new content every day, and that's what I do. I'm an artist, cartoonist. I do commissions. I work part-time at a brewery here in Connecticut called Fox Farm. I'm slightly biased, but we are the best brewery in the state. Really great lagers, mixed fermentation. Our spontaneous fermentation program is starting to kick off, and the owners are just really good, nice people, and the beer's good. And yeah, maybe we'll get to pour people draft beer soon. So,
gosh, wouldn't that be great? Like the old days.
I know, it's been a year. One year this week actually, since we are curbside only. So.
Has it been that way all year? What have the rules in Connecticut been?
So breweries can be open, but there has to be food. And we at Fox Farm didn't really want to go up against our good friends we are in a very small town in eastern Connecticut called Salem, Connecticut. And we are very good friends with the people who own restaurants there. And we don't really want to go up against them. We want people to go there. And so we made the choice just to do cans to go since the 19th of March. So about a year. And so we've been doing it out of the back of the barn. We put in like an ice cream window so we could stay closed. Like we could keep, because the barn is uninsulated. The brewery's in a 1960s era cow barn.
Wow.
So it is really cold in the winter and really hot in the summer. It is not insulated at all. So we've been selling cans just through this like slide window, and then you can come up and buy beer there, or you can get it online and then pick it up. And it's been working out. We didn't have to cut production. No one lost their jobs. There's only like 8 of us that work there. So, but yeah, it's been a little slow in the winter, but it's going to pick up. Hopefully we'll be open whenever they get rid of the food mandate. That's what every car that rolls up is like, when are you going to open? And we don't have an answer for them. But then they're like, but I'm vaccinated. And I'm like, I don't care.
That's kind of
I don't care about you. So,
that's kind of a weird mandate you got to have food if you want to be open. I mean, what's that got to do with the virus?
I think it's people to like, no one like bar. I don't know. We in Connecticut take all our cues from New York. It's like kind of a tri-state mandate. So they are the rule. They created that rule, and our governor kept with it. So it will go away, I would assume.
Right.
But most breweries do, like, there's 12% imports. They're a contract brewer, but they brew what they brew for American Solera out of Oklahoma. They brew for a lot of breweries. They do this like $4 cheese plate, which is like string cheese, some crackers, and like a salami, and then you can drink. Then you can drink there.
It's food,
and
here's
it's
a
outside.
sleeve of saltines.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. So you can go there, or there's a lot of. We've been kegging somewhat for bars. So I just tried our West Coast style pale ale on draft for the first time ever on Saturday. I'd never had it on. I'd only had it in cans, and it was so good. So happy.
I wonder if the special charcuterie board has like $7 you get the club crackers.
I don't. Yeah, I've not been to the last time I went there was before times. I went on my birthday, and they were open and whatnot. But it was But most breweries were there. I think there are only 2 breweries in the state that aren't open right now, and that's us and my friend Kent Falls, my friend Barry's brewery, and they're out in they're western in the woods. You got to take like a dirt road to get there.
Oh gosh!
And they're just doing just distro. They leaned really heavy on distro.
Gotcha.
So you can still get their beer.
So what's your beer story? What got you into beer? Do you remember your first craft beer?
My first book is dedicated to the beer that got me into beer, which was Sam Adams White Ale, which was their spring seasonal back in the day. This is 2006.
Okay.
And I'm 23. And I was at a sports bar watching the Super Bowl with my friend in New Hampshire, and I ordered a Sam Adams White Ale. It was $4.50. It came in a 25-ounce mug, like one of those giant bowling alley mugs with a big handle. And I was like, all right, cool. And I took a sip, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And I took a sip, and I was like, my life will never be the same. I'm like, this is the best day I've ever had. I'm blown away. I want to drink beer for the rest of my life. I love beer. That's what I want to do.
Did you love beer before that though?
I did. I mean, we drank a lot of Molson Canadian. I went to college in the Hudson Valley in New York. So we drank a lot of like Molson Canadian. We drank a lot of Yingling, like the cases. We never drank the like cheap stuff. We always kind of like went like one step above, I guess.
Yeah. I'm a bit jealous right now.
It was,
that was not my college experience.
No, not mine either. We couldn't get Molson or Yingling.
Yeah, and Molson Canadian, the reason we drank it was 28 in a box instead of 24, because we go to in New York, they have what are called home Ds, or home distributors. So the distributor kind of owns I actually have no idea how it works. I just know you have to buy it by the case, and it's cheap. So we would go there and buy beer, and you could buy a 28 pack of Molson for like $15. It was dirt cheap, and so we would just do that. So that's where, and it was almost cheaper than Budweiser, because I remember buying a 30 rack of Bud for my 21st birthday, and it was $22. And I was just like, that's more expensive than Yingling. And that's normally what we drank. So, I mean, that was, and Molson Canadian had like pickup lines on the back that were like kind of offensive that we thought were really funny. So we would, there was like,
I did not know this.
There's like hot tub inspector, or like be different, say yes, which is like, yeah, you can't do that now.
You know, you moved context of years. It's a little different now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's where I started with beer, and after the white ale, that was it.
Fun fact: we don't get Yingling here. Closest.
It's fine.
But but people still go apeshit about it because you have to drive 3 hours to go get it from here.
Yeah.
So when people go to Arkansas, you're right.
Anything you have to drive for. Yeah, we used to. So in Connecticut, when I was 21, you couldn't buy beer on Sundays, and you couldn't buy beer after 8:00. But I grew up about a 20-minute drive from the border. So we would drive to Port Chester, New York, and we would buy Yingling and then drive it back. And so we were close enough, though, where the rules really didn't bother us enough. But yeah, It was, now it's, you can't, in Connecticut, you still can't buy beer after 10. You can't buy alcohol after 10. Wow. And then on Sundays, you can buy alcohol from 10 to 7.
Good old government keeping our
the old laws that still exist.
Laws. Yeah, they still. But it used to be you couldn't buy. They changed the law. The Sunday law got changed recently. It's like 10 years ago, 2012, 2013. So yeah,
that was the case here.
That was Kansas
and Missouri.
Missouri's is a little earlier, but yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't buy it on Sunday list. That you went to a package store that sold food. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. And then it was you could buy it on Sunday, but you had to wait till noon.
And then you'd play, 2 times the price,
right?
Because you couldn't get any place else. So.
The popularity of Chiefs football changed that.
Yeah,
part.
I think so. So what's the Connecticut beer culture like? I know nothing about it.
It's great. Connecticut has a great. So it was a little slow to start. When I turned 21 in 2004, we had a handful of breweries, and they were all pretty good. And then when like the craft beer boom really hit around 2013 or so, I moved around. So I lived in Massachusetts. I moved to Vermont to go to art school. I moved to Oregon for a year to of just, I love New England. This is where I'm from. This is where I want to be. This is where my family is. But I wanted to kind of try so I moved to Oregon for a year, worked in a beer bar, which was great. I don't like that football started at 10 in the morning. That was upsetting to me because I would work till midnight at the bar and then I'd wake up at like 10:30 and they also showed the worst possible. I'm like, Raiders, who wants to watch? It was like the worst. I don't even know who they would show, but it was.
Yeah, you were getting the West Coast games.
Yeah, I was getting the West Coast games no one wanted. And I want to watch. I'm a New York Giants fan, so I wanted to watch my Giants, which I couldn't. So I listened to them on the radio, but. So I moved there, and then I moved back to Connecticut in 2012, and I've been here ever since. So the past 9 years. But the beer scene is really good. We have over 100 breweries now in the state.
Wow.
The town that I live in, which is about 74,000 people. So it's one of the larger towns in the state. We have 2 very good breweries. We have Alvarium, and we have 5 churches. And they're both very good breweries. Alvarium is more, I prefer it. No disrespect to like Drew and Phil and the guys at 5 Churches. Their beers are really good too. But I like Alvarium's beers a lot. They cater to they do the like weird pastry where they brew with graham cracker.
Oh yeah.
But then they'll brew pre-prohibition style lager. And you're like,
what?
Or they'll brew like a dark mild. Their Hefeweizen, a friend of mine came in to visit. He's also an advanced Cicerone. We took him to Alvarium, or I gave him a can of Alvarium, didn't tell her what it was, and it was their Hefeweizen. And he did not believe that it was brewed in Connecticut. He was like, "This is German." And I'm like, "No, it's brewed in New Britain." And he was like, "No, you're lying to me." And I'm like, "I'm not lying to you, man. Like and their beers are really good." So.
I think it's funny how she called her town the town, and it's 74,000 people.
Right.
That's a town.
It's a town.
That's a town.
You're not much bigger than we're right outside Kansas City, and we're just hit over 100,000.
Oh, okay.
We certainly don't call it a town.
I mean, it's a city. They call it a city. To me, I guess where I live right on the border with West Hartford, which is the closer to Hartford, which is the capital, the main city.
Mm-hmm.
And I live in a very like suburban section of New Britain, so I don't think of it as a city. But I guess it is a city. So, but I don't know. To me, it's a town.
It's a quaint little town of
74,000.
74,000 people. Yeah,
it's a village.
So tell us the story. We kind of got the story about you have some connections to Athletic Brewing. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So Bill Schufelt, who I call Billy because we went to like nursery school. Like his mother and my mother were like childhood, like they're like really good friends. So it feels like I love Athletic so much. I'm so happy for them. When he started it, he like gave me a tour. I walked around. I met their brewer. It was super small time. And now they're national. They bought Ballast Point's old brewery, so they're crushing.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. They're, I think they're doing a really, really good job. They do a lot of e-commerce.
Right.
So like,
right.
The UPS guy showed up and brought me a case of beer today. Like,
you're blessed.
It was. He sent me more than I like thought. I was like, hey, can I have more Athletic? And he was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then this case showed. Like, he's super generous, nice guy. So. But they're my official beer of podcasts and late night. So I guess I'm like an influencer now or something.
That's fun. Nick, you ready for a mystery beer before you ask your question?
Yeah, let's do mystery beer.
We have mystery beers.
Yay.
So I'll just give you the spiel.
Okay.
This is our mystery beer bag. It came from a golf course.
I can tell.
A friend of mine might have procured it somehow, but we keep it classy, right?
Of course.
Here you go, Nick.
What do we got?
Brown paper bag. You're going to need an opener for that one.
Did you come prepared?
Well, it's the same opener I stole from last time, so
okay.
it's fine.
As long as we have it.
There you go.
What do we got here?
We started this a year ago, but Nick's had so many beers now, I really can't call him a neophyte. That's what I used to call him. But he's drank enough beer now to at least...
I still claim it.
He'll still claim it, but I try to bring him something different every time. So.
I need to look at more of the panels so that I can talk with the words, the big words.
I don't think there are big words in my comics, but okay.
None at all. That's what I love about it. What we got there?
North Coast Brewing's Old Rasputin, Russian Imperial Stout.
Wonderful beer.
Excited about this one, actually.
Yeah,
that is I'm giving a talk actually Wednesday night. I'm taking my first train. Not like ever. That's weird.
I was like, congratulations.
No. I'm in my since the pandemic, I'm going into New York City and I'm doing a talk. I'm doing a St. Patrick's stout talk at the Yale Club.
Wow.
And they picked the beer. I know, very fancy. They picked the beers, and one of them is Old Rasputin. And I don't know who picked the other beers, but I was like, excellent choices. That beer rocks. That'll get you messed up excellently.
Well, glad we're splitting it. That's why we're
even better.
Splitting it.
It's 9%, but still.
Yeah, it's not.
That's a classic North Coast.
I didn't even have to look. She just knows it's 9%.
Yeah.
I was doing notes for my talk on Wednesday, so sorry, that's how I know.
I hadn't seen that beer in a while, and I was in Lawrence at this liquor store because Missouri and Kansas, I get two because we're right on the border, right?
Sure.
And Kansas gets totally different beers than what we get in Missouri. So I was over there. I'm like, I hadn't seen one of those in years. And I do love it. So it's a really great beer.
I do a fair amount of beer shopping in Massachusetts. We'll drive the half hour, to Table and Vine in Springfield, Mass.
Okay.
Excellent beer selection. And Massachusetts has much lower taxation or I guess, actually, I don't know if it's taxation, but the cost to enter their state for distribution is really low. Connecticut, it's obscenely high.
Oh.
So most places don't distribute in Connecticut. And why would you? It's like hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
Whereas in Massachusetts, it's like $20.
Yeah.
So we'll do the drive and we get Rheingeist and I would get all sorts of stuff that I'm like, I just kind of I bring the cart and I
sweep it all in.
Yeah.
What do you think, Nick?
Fantastic.
Isn't that great?
Junior, you're jealous.
Yeah. We got our one of our regulars, Junior. If we don't tell him what beer is happening on the podcast, he gets perturbed about us. So we have to let him know. Old Rasputin from
North Coast Brewing Company.
And then we had Martin City's Double Secret Hardway Junior. You can get that locally. You can get that locally too. So obviously you're big into beer.
Mhm.
You had that Sam Adams back in the day. You know, what happened between then and now? Because obviously there's been a lot has happened with you.
Yeah, that's true.
And you really got serious into it. When did that start happening?
So right after when I was in New Hampshire, I was living in Boston. And so Boston had a really great beer scene at that time. I mean, it's the early aughts. So you've got a lot of like regionals. So you've got like Harpoon, Allagash, Otter Creek, Long Trail, these like, but great quality, good beer, a lot of English style IPAs, but that's fine. And so I was living in Boston, so I would go to these beer bars with really great imports and like Saison DuPont and all that stuff. And just like, was just ravenous I loved white ales. So I was like, okay, I like wit beers. What's like a wit beer? And then I'd have Hefeweizens, and then I would get into the Belgians. And then I just like wanted to drink all the beers. You know, you're just kind of like, when you get into beer, there's so much, you know, it's like, and there's something to suit every flavor. You're like, I want to drink, you know, a darker beer. And then there's like porter stouts, coffee stouts, oatmeal stouts, milk stout, you know, there's something for everybody. And that's what I really loved about beer. And also the fact that like, you can get a, you know, Chimay white triple $7.50 for like $12, and that beer rocks. And it's $12.
You can get that $12 where you are.
Well, now this was like.
Back then, I was like, hold on. I'm like, I'll be right back.
Yeah. Do you accept Apple Pay?
I want to say it's like 15, 16.
Yeah.
A bottle. We had Saison DuPont with dinner, and I think that bottle, and that was a $7.50. That was $10. And it was 6 months old or something. Yeah. And that was so good. Like, and that's just like and like you can get, you know, small bottles of Chimay White for $6, you know, for a 12 ounce or $7. That's wild to me that these beers that are so, you know, world class.
I don't think we can get those for that price here, to be honest with you. Because I couldn't tell you the last time I saw a Chimay, to be honest with you, on the shelf.
It's so good. I had a Chimay Blue recently. I went through a quad heavy winter, as in I was drinking a lot of quads because it was really cold and we had a lot of snow.
That makes sense.
And so I went and I would go to the local, I have the Total Wine, which is the big guy.
Right.
Or I have, which is good for like, if you're going to buy like other stuff. But then I have a friend of mine owns a liquor store in West Hartford, which is a town next to me called Harvest. And it's all in cooler. It's a little more expensive than Total, but not by much. He creates, because I'm studying for the Master Cicerone exam, he creates blind beer 6-packs for me and like wraps them individually. And then my husband works in IT. He comes home at like 5:30 and he'll like pour me a beer. And then I like walk through like, what is this?
Right.
Like, yeah, it's pretty fun. So
we just learned a lot about the Cicerone program, or what I say is a lot. We probably got about this much information.
Well, our
last episode.
Yeah, it was Neil Whitty. He used to work at Boulevard. He was on last time. Yeah, he was pretty awesome.
Neil he's the scariest proctor in the whole world. He would be happy that you said that.
Yeah, he took some enjoyment out of proctoring that portion he does.
The first time I ever experienced him was the first time I took the master, and it was the maintenance portion where you're in a room, you have a kegerator, and something's wrong, and you have to fix all the things, and it's not like, you know, it's not plugged in, like there's the probe seals missing or something, and it was a Guinness keg, and so it was a U coupler because Guinness has their own proprietary coupler,
right?
And I remember looking at him and being like, Neil, a U coupler? And he was just like, you have 10 minutes. And he just like smiles through the whole thing. And you're like, I love you so much, Neil. But like right now I'm just like, ugh. And I got like a 4. I couldn't figure it out. I still have no idea what was wrong with that keg. That was like 4 years ago. But you're like, the last time I took it was 2019, and there was 2 beers. One I fixed, and it was a Budweiser, like regular D Sankey, and I forget what was wrong with the other one. But I kind of gave up and just drank the pint of Budweiser. I was like, well, I don't know what's wrong. I'm just gonna drink this. I'm just gonna drink. And he just kind of looked at me and like took some notes. But Neil is a sweet. He came to Connecticut. He was proctoring an exam, and I took him out for New Haven style pizza. Connecticut is known for the best pizza in the country.
I did not know that.
New Haven.
You know anything about this, Nick?
I did not know this.
Mm-hmm. It's New Haven style. So it's either like charcoal or like really hot fire, real thin oval pizza. It kind of gets burnt, so it like freaks people out at first. You have to ask for mozzarella. If you don't, you just get this kind of like red pie with some like Parmesan on it. But they do a white pie with clam. That's the most like well known.
Wow.
Or I took him to Bar, which is a brew pub. But also does New Haven style pizza, and they do a mashed potato, bacon, garlic, and that's what I took him for, because that pizza with a white base, that pizza rocks.
Sounds like it.
It was. I need a road trip.
Yeah, we need to go.
New Haven pizza is, and then you can go to East Rock Brewing on the east side of town, and it's a lager brewery, great dark lagers. I'm a real sucker for dark lagers, and their beers are really, really good. New Haven pizza is really, I miss it. I live like 40 minutes away, so we don't get it that much. There's Pepe's is the real famous one. We have a Pepe's Outpost in the town next to us, but it's not as good. It's good. It's just a little pricey. So yeah, we don't go there that often, but the pizza is really good. It's good. It's unlike any pizza you'll have, but I mean that in like a good way. But I took Neil to Bar, and then we went out and drank a bunch of beers, and it was awesome. He's just a nice, passionate, sweet man.
Very cool.
I really like him so much. He's such a nice guy. Like, except when he's drunk.
I'm curious about how you got into. So, I mean, you went to grad school for art. You're an artist. You love beer. How did that kind of turn into beer career?
So I started Pints Panels in 2010. Between my first and second year of grad school, the name comes from an ex-boyfriend.
Nice.
I was running errands, and I came home to his apartment, and I was like, "Hey, I want to do this like review beer comic website. Like, what would you call it?" And he didn't even look up from his book, and he was just like, "You should call it Pints and Panels." And I was like, "Yes, yes, I should." And being in Vermont in 2010 meant, getting some of the greatest microbreweries of the day. I was there the first time I visited Hill Farmstead was the day that Sean Hill got his first pallet of bottles ever.
Nice.
Like that's just, or when you go to Von Trapp and they used to brew. Have you ever had any Von Trapp beers?
I've not.
They're really, so it's like the Sound of Music family. They have a very high-end hotel, but they also have a lager brewery that it was just for the hotel, and now it's a huge regional 100-barrel system, big beer hall. But when I lived in Vermont, it was just they had retrofitted their deli and like sandwich shop to have a beer system, and they brewed Vienna lager, and you would go to the high-end hotel, and they let you like sit, like you could pretend like you were there. And that beer was so, just having access to that, having access to it was like the beer scene in Vermont, going to the Vermont Brewers Festival, meeting Sean Lawson, waiting in line for 20 minutes for 2 ounces of his IPA. And he poured it me to himself. And I remember being like, this better be good. And I took a sip and I looked at him and I was just like, this is really good. Like, it was so good. It was worth waiting in that huge line for.
Sean Lawson. Is that Lawson's Finest Liquids?
Yes.
Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
It's the beer community is so crazy. So a couple of weeks ago, I worked at a couple of breweries in town, and this couple, they're from upstate New York, and they're retired, so they're in one of those Mercedes Sprinters, and they're driving to Colorado to go skiing, and we get to talking about the brew scene back there, and they just park in people's parking lots. Because that's what they do when you just travel around the country and you're retired or whatever. So they end up parking in the parking lot of Lawson's Finest Liquids, and they're like, "Oh, we're closed," blah 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 blah. But said they want to park across the street, and next thing you know, somebody comes out of the brewery and brings them like all these beers. It's that guy, Sean.
Nice. So his wife is from Connecticut.
Really?
She's from the town next to. She's from Farmington or Unionville, which is like right next to us. And so like he and I've talked about it before. He is the nicest, one of the nicest guys. So humble, really great brewer, just a really good person. I've yet to go to the new Lawson's, like the new place that he built, because I think back in the day he was just brewing in his like house, and his wife was drawing the labels. Like it's like wild. And now there's this beautiful facility. We haven't been able to go to Vermont. Closed its borders, so you really couldn't go. Wow. Yeah, they had really heavy COVID restrictions. Like you get a big ticket if they saw your like Connecticut plates and you got caught. It was like $1,000. It was really expensive. Wow. Yeah. So now if you're vaccinated, you can go back up there. And since I am vaccinated, I'm like, So I'm like trying to like see if I can go back up there because I've never been, and I'd love to go up and see. His beers are really good. We get a bunch of them down in Connecticut, and they're always stellar. So
yeah, the only one I've had is Sip of Sunshine.
Yes, and
I had it 6 years ago, and then probably 2 years ago, my buddy lived in Boston, and we went to Boston. And I was on Untapped. And I looked at and they popped up, so I went to a liquor store, bought a 4-pack, drank one. I'm like, it's still as good as I remember. Took the other 3, went to the post office, and sent them back to Kansas City.
Nice. That's smart.
And so that couple that came into the brewery the other day, we were talking about how I love that beer. They went after the vehicle and they had the double IPA with them, and they gave me one of those, and it's still in my refrigerator. I haven't even cracked it yet. I was like, the beer karma is real.
Yeah, that's the best part about beer people too. Is beer people are so nice.
Yeah.
Like they want to share the thing. When you go to other places, or I always travel with beer. I always do. Like I can't help myself. So like we were in like Alaska, and we were at a brewery, and I'm like, "Here's beer from Connecticut," and they were just like, "What?" Like
that's a good idea.
Yeah, like I always have beer in my suitcase, or we go to. We have very good friends in Belgium. We go to Belgium. We've been to Belgium 3 times, my husband and I, and so we always bring American beer. And then there's my friend owns a beer store in Brussels, and he drinks more Fox Farm, the brewery I work at, than like I do sometimes. Because there's a guy from New Jersey who comes up once a month and then flies to Belgium for business. And so he'll just send me pictures of drinking like our Pilsner. And I'm like, how did you? And he's just like, I don't know, like that's why. Yeah, that's the best part, like traveling places and then like filling your suitcase with stuff you've never had before, going to beer stores and being like, what's good? And then just kind of like, I'll take that and that and that, that's each state has their own beer scene, and it's just fun to go and try. We went to Australia in 2019. I judged the Australia International Beer Awards. And I'd never heard of any beer I drank the almost entire time I was there, and everything was so good.
Isn't that great when you go someplace you're like, I've never heard of this.
I don't know what any of these, and they have they don't have tap handles. They have like little cards that are like pinned up in front, and you're like, I'll take that, and then it shows up, and it's just like, this is delicious, and it is awesome. Like it was a great beer scene. I enjoyed.
So back to Nick's question, you kind of decided to make this a career thing. Obviously, you advanced Cicerone. Mm-hmm. I mean, at what point in your beer travels did you think, oh, I'm way more into this than I probably should be, but I like it and I'm going to keep going?
I don't know. I mean, so living in Vermont really helped, and then finding out about the Cicerone program. I'm a big nerd, if you can't tell. And I love to learn and geek out and read and whatnot. So I took the level 1 Cicerone when I lived in Oregon and passed, which is just an online exam.
Right.
And then the level 2 I took in 2015. I was working at a brewery in Connecticut called Two Roads. I worked there for 5.5 years. They're a big regional. They brew Sip of Sunshine for Lawson's.
Oh, okay.
So they're a big contract facility. So he had a new session IPA, and I fished some low fills out of the bin and took them to the beach. And I was with my friends, and I was like, this beer doesn't get released for 2 more weeks. This is the first time anyone's ever like taken it out.
Right.
probably shouldn't have done that. That was probably not a great idea, but it was
I mean,
delicious.
that's
I
what
don't
low
care.
fills are for.
Yeah,
I mean-
except this was a really deep bin, and sometimes when a beer gets kicked into the bin, you get hit in the head. So you'd be like kind of head first trying to like dig out some low fills, and then you get whapped in the head.
Yeah.
That hurt a lot. But whatever. That's
but you earned the beer doing that.
oh
right?
yeah,
Right,
no,
you know
I
what
had
I'm
I had a special like bag for my low fills, and I'd bring them home, and like because we brewed Evil Twin, Stillwater, our own beers, which were very good, Lawson's. We brewed a lot of stuff,
Wow.
a lot of stuff. So it was always fun, different day. Like, oh, what are we like packaging, or just like pulling one off the line, or pulling one out of the low fill area and just
Right.
trying it. It was fun. So, but I took my certified in 2015, and then or 2014. I don't remember. But I took the advanced in 2017 in Chicago. Didn't think I passed. It's a really hard exam. Found out 2 months later I did. I was homesick, and I got the email, and I started screaming, and my husband was home because he used to be a bartender and he worked nights, and he like thought something terrible had happened. He's like, what? And I was like, I passed. And then I started getting this nagging feeling that I really wanted to take the master. And so I quit my job at Two Roads in 2018 to study full time.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a real leap of faith. Plus,
Yeah.
I had started doing Pints and Panels, and Pints and Panels was starting to pick up. So I was like, all right, well, I got that. And then, luckily, getting this job working at Fox Farm, I got that in July of 2018, where the owner was like, hey, come in, like, help us once a week, no big deal. And then I've been there now for almost 4 years. But the beer is so good. Franconian Keller beer, all the Franconian Keller beer I could drink. So I work there, and then study and draw on the side. And now I'm working on my second book for Brewers Publications, and doing commissions and traveling all over. Hopefully go back to traveling.
Yeah.
I miss judging beer. Like, obviously I do it at home, but I miss judging that professionally.
So, how many times have you taken the master?
This will be my 2. So you need an 85 to pass. I got a 78 the first time and a 77 the second time. I know a lot of people who've done worse the second time, because you get confident where you're like, oh, I know how to do this. And then you're always out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And the third time is the charm. I'm still not, I don't think you can be confident about it. I don't know. So I'm going to take it. I take it with, I have 3 really good friends who I've made by taking the exam with them.
Yeah.
And so we do like study weeks. We travel together. 2 of them live in the UK, and one of them actually is a good friend of mine from Connecticut. So I knew him from before. He's the education person for artisanal brewing ventures. So Victory, 6 Point, Southern Tier. And then my other 2 friends, one lives in London and one lives in Glasgow. And so we talk and study together a lot. Then mostly we just goof off and drink beer.
The program sounds awesome, and I love it, but there is absolutely nothing appealing to me about that kind of masochistic studying and test taking.
It's fun. There's something about the exam that's fun.
Yeah. Neil didn't say that when he took it. He didn't call it fun.
The first time I took it, it was fun because there was no expectation to pass.
Right.
Really. And I remember telling Ray Daniels, who's the founder of the Cicerone program, I was like, I really enjoyed it. It was fun. And he was like, are you feeling okay?
Did you get hit with another can?
Yeah, the second time was not fun. You either like puke or cry during the exam. That's what they say. The first time I didn't need to do either. The second time I stupidly I was going on a family vacation the next day, and it was with my mother and my sister to Scotland. And so I was like, well, I'll fly home right after the exam, and then my mom and I can fly together. So I'm on the plane home at like midnight, like kind of drunk, depressed because I know I didn't pass, trying not to cry on a full Southwest flight back to Connecticut. And I took I always take photos of how people take selfies of themselves when they look good. I always take selfies of myself when I look utterly nuts. because I want to, and I have a photo of myself where I was just like, oh God, like I look like, and I got home at 2 a.m. and like my husband like tucked me in because he was awake and he was like, it's fine, you're fine, you're fine. And it was just like a mess. So I know the third time will probably be the night before the exam. I took a Xanax and I played video games, and that was real help.
So, the most fascinating part of that exam to me, because I've watched a couple of documentaries, is that whole blind, me setting a beer in front of you and you going through that process. How do you even learn that? I mean, it's kind of crazy.
You do. So you just drink. I always tell people like, what do I do about beer? How do I learn about beer? And I'm like, drink beer responsibly, but you just drink beer. So I have my friend Ian who has a liquor store. He does blind beer training for me. And I just drink as many classic styles. We drink a lot of classic styles here at my house. So like Saison DuPont with dinner. I just had a Guinness 4 and extra stout, which was phenomenal. You just kind of train to drink classic beers, and actually that portion's not that difficult.
Really?
Yeah. Once you kind of know, like you get really excited when you get one. Like I was with my friend Robin, who's taking the exam with me last year, and in the exam for tasting, they'll tell you during the exam, like, this is the answer to number 1. This is the answer to number 2. So you kind of know how you did.
Right.
And for the blind tasting portion, they were like, number 3 is an American wheat beer. And I was like, I know it, And she was like, yeah, I got that too. And there was like 4 and extra stout was in it. It's hard, obviously. But, if you're drinking a bunch of beer and you kind of know, you can kind of pull out. I mean, it's not easy.
Walk us through that for those that don't know, for dummies like me, or draw me a picture. Like, what are you doing as you taste this?
So the tasting exam, they'll put 9 beers in front of you. You have 15 minutes, and you have to name the style.
Just 9 beers.
Just 9. Oh yeah, no big deal. The harder part is when you have to do there's a stop-go panel where they put 9 beers in front of you, and I think it's 9 or is it 12? I don't remember. And some of the beers have off flavors and some of them don't. And so you have to be like, go, that one's clean. That one's clean. No, that's stop. Something's wrong with that one. That one has DMS. So it has that corn cabbagey note. And then you write that down and you go, the next one, that one's clean. And you get in your own head because you're like, is that clean? Am I tasting it correctly? Is there anything? That's the hardest. The stop go is really hard, especially 2019. It was the hardest because sometimes you can't taste off flavors. There are certain off flavors that I just can't get. I've taken classes. I've tried to you get they come in little like pills with like powder in them. You dump them in and you try, you see what your friends think. And you can't get it. And there was the Stop Go panel in 2019 had 3 of those for me. And so I just did terribly because I don't get Damascus, which is like hay, comes across as like autumn. So like when you go outside when it's cold, there's that aroma. Or like it also comes across as like black currant. It's a hop staling. So like when IPAs start to go south, you get more like candy notes. Is
that just like some people can't just
some people some people are blind to like a diacetyl, that butter note.
Yes.
Was it 30% of people can't taste that?
My buddy has a brewery here. Shout out to Nolan down at Transparent. I forgot to bring the beer we were supposed to drink, by the way. My bad. I forgot. I have the beer in my refrigerator. He gives us a beer every week for the podcast, and I just forgot to bring it. Anyway, he does a tasting class, and I sat in there. I was like, oh, my God. It's some of those things I'm like, I would never get. Some of it I can describe. I may not know the word or whatever, but some of that stuff I'd be like, I don't know how the hell if you had 12 beers in front of you, if you had to do it. It's a
well, and it's timed, right? So
it's 50. You have 15 minutes.
That's a lot to go through and not overload yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The one thing how I train for it, because the capsules are really expensive and the class you want to take is really expensive. So what I do is I go to bad breweries and I get a flight and I bring a notepad and I just like walk through each beer and I go, okay, this is a blonde ale. Well, then why does it taste like a Belgian? Oh, 'cause this, like their yeast are stressed, or it's they're fermenting too like hot, or there's a bunch of reasons why. And it's a great, cheap way to taste off flavors. It's a thing I tell people a lot. Take a bad beer tour, pay for the flight, and then, it's just a great way to cheaply taste off flavors.
I think maybe that's the next iteration of the mystery beer. I'm going to cover the label. See what's that? I'm going to get Nick a Cicerone yet. Watch.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to go over real well.
I mean, it'd be a fun experience.
It'd be interesting.
Maybe that's an episode. We just blind taste some beers and see what the hell happens. Speaking of,
my answers would be, I like it. I like it a lot. I want more.
Here's your next mystery beer, sir. Speaking of blind taste. I'm out of beer. That's why I need that. I tell you one thing, Em. If all the, because even taking the certified beer server and the study things that go along with it, if they were pictures and the way you do it, I would learn better, way better that way. Because at least when I see what you do, it makes sense to me. I'm not a good test taker. I'm not a reader of text. But things like that stick in your head, it's probably my creative side. You know what I'm saying? That makes sense to me, because when I'm like, oh, now I can get the style. If there's pictures involved,
that's why. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I do Pints and Panels. I mean, it's accessible.
Yeah.
All my stuff is available for free. I do a visual certified beer server syllabus.
Yep.
I also do a visual certified Cicerone syllabus that I'm working on right now that I'm almost done with. All of them are available for free on my website in the educational archive. And then I do the master Cicerone syllabus. That's for me,
right?
To help me, because I'm also a visual. I'm not a good.
What are you a visual learner too?
And it drives me nuts how when you're trying to read something or study. A lot of the stuff online that's free is homebrew based, which is great for home brewers. And if you're going to start your own brewery or want to brew at home, but a lot of it's not commercial breweries, which is what the exam is.
Yeah.
Or I get very agitated at the misinformation in beer. There's a lot of misinformation on websites, and in books. So I'm trying to cut through that and be like, all right, if you're looking for an accurate information about beer, come to Pints and Panels, and it's visual too. So it's very easy to understand, easy to digest. I also tell people if they see something they don't agree with or think it's wrong, email me and tell me, because I never want to teach anyone anything wrong about beer. That would be my greatest nightmare, is that you learn something from me and then it ends up being wrong. That would be really upsetting. Every comic I do, I have my friend Shane McNamara, who works for AB actually, but he lives in London. He has his master's in brewing and a law degree. He's the smartest person I know. He looks at almost every comic I do. So from a brewer's perspective, I have oversight where he's like, I don't know what you mean about this. And so we walk through it together. He's incredibly helpful as an editor. So
editors are important.
Yes.
What do we got here? We got, let's see, Narrow Gauge Brewing, Nanners and Nilla. I'm excited about this one.
Shout out to Scott Kranz for picking that for. No, actually, it got delivered to his house. Well, that's out of St. Louis, but now they deliver. They'll ship to Kansas City, which is nice.
And Johnny wants to know, this will be 11.5%.
Oh shit! I didn't even know that. I didn't even look at it.
Em does not want to drink that this late at night.
Oh my gosh! Okay, then.
Bedtime coming up.
Yeah, I know. I'm such an old lady. So my husband works. He does IT for the vaccine rollout in Connecticut, and he has to be at work at 7:30 to set up the drive through for the vaccine people. So he gets up at 6:30 in the morning. So we have an early. Two old people go to bed early with the cat. So.
Well, I'm halfway there. I got dose number 1 last week.
Nice. That's awesome. I was very lucky in that in the beginning, now they have protocol for extra vaccines, but in the beginning when he was working, they were just throwing them out. So he was like, you get here in 15 minutes, I can jab you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit of a shit show in Missouri right now with the vaccines.
That's what
people are driving an hour and a half.
Right.
When there should be plenty in Kansas City, but there's not. Makes no sense.
The rural areas have more.
Yeah, yeah. The town of 500 has 2,500 doses. You know what I'm saying? It makes no sense.
They actually in Connecticut, everyone above 16 will be able to get vaccinated in 3 weeks here.
Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's awesome. And you can smell that.
Yes, a lot of banana, and we know there's banana in this one for sure. What's it called?
Nanners and Nilla.
So is it like a vanilla banana wafer type
like
situation?
Vanilla wafer. It's a lot of banana. It's really sweet.
Yeah, that is pretty sweet. It doesn't taste like 11% though.
No, you don't. I don't feel like I'm getting
snockered,
which usually is a bad sign.
Well,
you don't know you're taking in that much alcohol. It doesn't end well a lot.
That's true. I mean, well, you know,
or it ends very well.
We can both walk home from here, so it's fine.
We're good.
I just got to walk across the street. So what's next for Pints and Panels? You said you got a book coming out.
Yeah, so I'm working on a book called Hooray for Craft Beer with Brewers Publications, so the Brewers Association. And that is due in September. It'll come out next year sometime. So sometime in 2022, probably summer or fall. It's just a really nice illustrative intro to craft beer. I drew a sleeping yeast today. Where it has a little nightcap. It's incredible.
I can't wait to see what that looks like.
The publisher for... I was like, what book are you guys looking for? And she was like, Make the Hops Talk. And I'm like, oh, it's going to be one of those. Okay, yeah, sure. Let's do that. So it's incredibly whimsical. It goes through beer styles. It's just a really nice illustrated guide to beer. It's going to be no brand focus at all. Like I'm going to direct people to the fact that most people have a brewery either, in their town or near them. I want people to go to their local breweries and try beers. So yeah, that's what I'm working on now. I've been doing beer bottle or can commissions. So I'll draw any beer bottle that you want, whatever. And $10 from every sale goes to beer culture. I do that as well for, I've been drawing a lot of buildings, so like bars that have closed that people really miss.
Oh, wow.
Or houses or whatever. And then part of that sale also goes to beer culture because I really, really like what they do. I think they're awesome. So yeah, and then I just, draw a lot of freelance stuff. I'm working with the Institute of Brewing and Distilling in London. I'm doing a bunch of comics for them. So that's really cool. I'm just drawing a lot about beer, working on a lot of what's been really popular is doing style comparisons. So like, what's the difference between a Helles and a Pilsner? And so I kind of lay them out side by side so you can see like, it's darker. Oh, and it's drier. Oh, and it would be more bitter. So, and these are the flavors you're looking for. So I've been doing a lot of those. Yeah.
That's a really cool mix though of styles because, I just look at your art style with your panels and then I think, infographics is a whole other talent pool to me. And to combine the two, that's really neat.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm working on an infographic right now about alcohol shelf life for a website based out of New York City called The Alcohol Professor. And man, is that a lot of work. I spent over an hour on the phone with a master sommelier going through different wines, their shelf life, alcohol, talking with the editor of Whiskey Advocate.
Wow.
It was, way more info that I thought, and then just trying to I lay it out, and then I said to them, and they were like, "Could you lay it out this way?" And luckily, I work in a way where all my work is kind of like a puzzle, so everything's very movable and easy to. It's not like a comic where there's a panel and then another panel and then another panel, and everything's very rigid. It's kind of more like a puzzle, and that's what an infographic is for me. So that's what I've been working on. There's always something to work on. It's exciting. People email me and they're like, can you draw me this? And I'm like,
yeah,
pay me money. And and it's exciting. It's, I'm not if you're looking for any drawing, I'm not expensive. So I've been drawing a lot of stuff. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
What got you involved with beer culture? Cause I love those guys as well. I
really like what they do. How did it happen? So when I started doing commissions, and $10 would go to direct relief for COVID, and then I was looking for, a different nonprofit to kind of highlight, and I've always just been really into what they've done. And then in the November, I was like, you know what, I'm going to switch and have them be my only nonprofit that I do, because it should be beer. And I donated a bunch to the Michael Jackson Foundation that Garrett Oliver did.
Yeah.
And so, Beer Culture sent me this plaque.
What?
Look at this shit.
Oh,
that's cool.
That's
it
nice.
made me so happy. I got it in the mail last week, and I emailed them, and I was like, no way. Like, it was so beautiful. I was like, that's going on the wall.
Yeah, there you go.
It's right next to, this is my first judging tag from the Great American Beer Festival when I judged for the first time.
Very
awesome.
Cool. How long ago was that?
2017. So I judged 2017, 2018, 2019. And then they were like, do you want to judge in 2020? And I was like, no, I don't. Thank you though. But no. And so it's my favorite thing to do. I love GABF judging. Everyone's so nice. The beer is really good. It's good practice. It's a great when it's always before the master. So you go, and my friend Max, who also judges with me, we travel together, and we'll walk around on the floor, and I'll be like, all right, 5 minutes, and we'll go and we'll find each other random beers, and I'll be like, what did I just give you? Or I'll be like, this beer is really, I was like, spit everywhere. Jesus.
It's not a family show. It's fine.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I'll be like, this beer has something wrong with it. We'll like seek out crappy beer.
Wow.
Yeah, at GABF, which is it's not that difficult. There's a lot of beer there, so it's a really fun to just like walk around. And then by 8:30, I'm like, it's time to go back to the hotel room, take an edible, and go to bed.
I like that you go find him bad beers, because that's both nice as he's studying, but you also still get to be mean to your friend and give him bad beer.
Oh yeah, or like that's fun when you're judging and the beer is so terrible that you're like, when something smells bad and you're like, this smells terrible, smell it.
Yeah.
People do that a lot, for good or for bad when you're judging. Like I remember we were at a table, and I forget who was one of the female judges at the table was like, this is the best example of dimethyl sulfide or DMS I've ever smelled. It smelled like straight cabbage. She's like, you gotta try this.
It wasn't a cabbage beer.
No. I forget what we were judging. I was judging with Chris from Green Bench, who's on the board for Beer Culture.
Right.
And so he and I were just like, cool, thank you. But it was a really great example it was disgusting. But it was a great example of DMS. And that's the fun, or like when you have a really, really good beer and you like walk up to another table and you're like, yo, you got to try this. Like this rocks. And you don't know what you're drinking.
Right.
I've judged where we almost gave beer gold or bronze, even though it didn't fit, because we really wanted to know what it was. And then we were like, well, that's not right. We can't do that. Mm-hmm. And so we ended up giving bronze to Widmer because it was American wheat beer.
Yeah.
But we never knew what that beer was. I have no idea what we drank. It was one of the best beers I've ever had.
Did you happen to hang out with Melissa Cole?
Yes.
At GABF.
Of course.
She is awesome.
She is wonderful.
I
met her through Max. So Max, my friend who works at Artisanal Brewing Ventures, had done an event with her in England. And so I met her. The first time I met her, we went to, have you ever been to Hogshead Brewing in Denver? It's the Real Ale pub.
I know of it. I've never been there.
They brew like dark milds and whatnot.
Right.
So she flew all the way from London, and then we dragged her to the like Real Ale brewery.
Just what she wanted, right?
And she was like, "Cool, great, more bitters, thank you." Like, she was very polite, and the beer is good. But it was, she's
awesome.
She's an awesome. That's the best part about beer, is that almost everyone is, almost everyone is a really good person, and they love what they do, and they're passionate about it. So
that's awesome. I struggle with people who because there's bad beer, and there's people who think beer's bad because they don't like a style, because they don't understand the style. how do you go about if you're talking to somebody who's uninitiated and they're like, oh, I don't like that. That's terrible. But it's not.
So I always think about my Aunt Nancy, who loves beer drinker. She's from Oregon. She loves Hefeweizens. She's a wonderful woman. Actually, most of my really cool beer glasses come from her travels. When she moved, She gave them. Like I have some really great beer glasses because of her. And we were at Thanksgiving, and I was like, oh, I brought a sour, and she goes, I don't like sours. I'm not drinking. I'm not like sours.
Sounds familiar.
Who would say that?
And I was like,
nobody would say that.
Yeah, I was like, Aunt Nancy, like, do you like lemonade? And she's like, oh yeah, of course. And I was like, well, you need to think about, think about lemonade when you're trying this, because it reminds me a lot of lemonade. And she tried it, and she was like, this is really good. And I was like, yeah, duh.
Which I think is always the best response. Duh.
Like so you just need to, it's
different frame of reference.
Yeah. And there's something, I don't like dark beers. And it's like, but you like chocolate? You don't like chocolate or coffee?
Right.
Or, there's a lot of misconception about dark beers. They're like too thick, or they're too, alcoholic, or they're too, caloric, which is like Guinness is one of the lowest calorie counts of any beer.
Yes.
So you have to kind of prime the pump, I guess, when you give someone a beer.
Yeah.
I struggled with Rauch beers. I didn't like smoked beers for a really long time. I was like, I don't want that bacon beer. And now they're one of my favorite styles. I drank one last night.
We have one of the breweries I work at. He does a smoked Pilsner.
Ooh, nice.
And people are, I don't like smoked beer. I'm like, well, it's not what you think. I said, think of the regular Pilsner that he does, but a little bit of character, if you will. And they're like, oh, it's really good. And another one we do, this is Wind Shift, shout out to Tony. He does a coconut porter. But
I love coconut beer.
Yeah. So but he did a soured coconut porter. And it's not, I like both styles, probably not together, but they're both done. It's done really well.
Yeah.
But people come in, even the people who don't like beers, and they taste it as sour. And they like it. I'm like, well, you must like dark beer, because their perception is like, well, it's a dark beer. But the sour part of it, they're like, oh, I can get with that. So it's, I struggle with trying to coach people.
Well, I think you got to get past too. Like sometimes you'll try something that first time and you may not like it, but that's not going to be the same sour that you have the next time or the next.
Yeah, beer's always changing. So I agree. I mean, there's certain styles that I've had that are really good, and with smoked beers, I love especially that smoked Pilsner. Put a lime wedge in that.
Yeah. He did. So he tweaked it again he does a small batch Sunday. Then he put blood orange in it.
Oh wow!
And it was really good.
I'm gonna like anything with blood orange in it.
Do you really?
Yeah.
It's almost. You done with that beer yet, buddy? It's almost time for your third.
I thought you said you were out.
No, I brought 3 beers. I didn't bring the one I was supposed to bring. Sorry, Nolan. I'll save it for next week.
You've missed him twice.
Well, no, that one week I just didn't go by there. Then I purposely went by to get another one. And I forgot to bring it. It's fine.
So do you have a favorite style?
Oh, man. I love dark lagers. So Munich Dunkels, Czech dark lagers, Schwarzbiers. I really like dark lagers because they always feel like they need a little love. And they're just really good year-round beers. People always think of like dark lagers as like a winter or like fall beer, but I love dark lagers all year round. Especially Schwarzbier in the summer, excellent.
I said a Schwarzbier yesterday.
They're so good. And then wit beer, I love Belgian. I was again really into quads. This winter we went through a heavy quad. Like we were drinking a quad. I mean, it was a small bottle. We drink a quad a night. After dinner. It was a great after dinner.
Right.
Beer. It's cold. It's snow. I mean, we got a lot of snow this year. To just like tuck in, drink a quad, and it's just so good. You're like drinking like raisins and like carrot. Right. It's just so good.
Yeah.
I just love beer. So I know that I probably have a little bit of a problem with loving beer, not drinking beer. I've got the non-alcoholic stuff. I know my limit with that, but like I just love talking about beer so much. It's my like
There's nothing wrong with loving beer.
No, there's not.
There's a lot of us. There's a lot of us out there.
That's the cool thing about like jumping into the world here, the craft beer world, as I've done the last year. Is just everybody enjoys it. They all share it.
No, it's
like I said. I think the beer karma's real. People get along, happy.
You know,
we haven't met a jerk yet.
I mean, we talk about diversity in beer and things like that, but ultimately, whoever's in it, it's all love. Mostly, 99.9%. You know, there's some dummies out there, but you know, and sure, it could be way more diverse. You know, more women, more whoever. You know what I'm saying?
But as an industry, it's actually tried.
Well,
you can't say that about all industries.
Well, that's true.
Most industries.
You know, and this industry gets along with each other. I don't think there's any bad blood between breweries. That would be weird. There's a brewery war. What's going on?
I think it's gonna be like Anchorman, where they meet in the streets.
I think we should do a beer version of Anchorman.
There we go. Brew team assemble.
That sounds like a great short.
Here we go. Bohemian breakfast. It's an oatmeal brown ale with coffee from Four Hands.
Also out of St. Louis.
Dana?
Jeremy Danner will be happy to hear that. Nice. So if we were come to your next neck of the woods, you've mentioned a couple of breweries that you really like.
Yep.
Who else would you send us to?
So I live less than an hour from Treehouse.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Great brewery.
Super nice people. Great place to sit and hang out when I don't know when they'll open again. But I love going there. Like, you go on a Wednesday when you don't know if the bar is going to be open. Sometimes they don't open it, but most of the time they do.
Right.
And you go and you just like sit. They have these like big Adirondack chairs. You hang out, drink a pint. Their lager program is very strong. So that's great. And I love. Yeah. I'm a crispy kid. That's what I call myself. Not crispy boy.
M. Sauter, the crispy
kid. And so
that's your fighting name.
Yeah, crispy kid. # crispy kid. So I love it. Yeah, Treehouse is really good. There's also Massachusetts has a really great beer scene. Every place has a good beer scene. I love Kent Falls. My friend Barry's Brewery in Kent, Connecticut. Great beer. They're doing all sorts of stuff. IPAs I had a foeder. I went and visited him on Wednesday, and we got to sit outside and drank one of his like foeder aged lagers. It was really good. Alvarium in my town in Connecticut, in New Britain, super good brewery. Connecticut has a very good scene. We have New Park in West Hartford. We've got Counterweight in Hamden. Counterweight's probably if I can't talk about Fox Farm being the brewery I work at, Counterweight's probably my favorite brewery in the state. Just really solid lagers, great IPAs. Their owner is just a really nice guy, Matt. I really like their beers a lot. We've got Old School, like New England Brewing Company. They've been open for I don't even know how many years. They brew old school stuff, but then they brew a lot of like new stuff. They're really great. There's just a lot of really good beer in Connecticut. I could keep going.
I like that we asked the question. She's going to list all of them.
Yes.
I'll keep going. I said I keep going.
This is really good, by the way.
This is
it's like a breakfast.
This is my coffee in the morning.
It is.
I feel like now this is episode 28. We've talked a lot about brown ale, but I think this might be the first brown ale we've had on the show.
Yeah. I guess. I don't know. It's a guessing game when I go get the beers out of the fridge. You know what I'm saying? So we haven't had a brown ale before.
I'm trying to remember. I don't think we have.
I don't think
we talked about brown ales a lot.
Well, we know Afro Beer Chick doesn't really like them. So
no, and I don't want to get on her bad side.
Well, gosh, Em, it's been a pleasure to have you on. I know it's past your bedtime, so we're not going to hold you. How can people find you, reach you, see you, all those things? Where do we get hold of you?
So my website is pintsandpanels.com, and then I'm on social at Pints and Panels on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. There's new content every day. If you have any questions, my DMs are open. You can there's a contact link on my website if you want to ask me a question. People ask me questions all the time about like how to get in the industry. What do you pair with lobster? Like, I've got questions all the time, and I will answer them.
What do you pair with lobster?
Flanders Red.
There you go.
Okay.
That is, yeah. Or I like with seafood. I really like Belgian blondes or wit beers. But if you want to think outside the box, I go Rodenbach Grand Cru, because that's going to just be like, that's going to be with those. You're going to hit all the boxes of like salty, sweet, sour. It's going to be interesting, but really good. So
sounds complimentary to me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love anything where they're salty and sweet together. That's my favorite pairing is chocolate chip cookies and New England IPA.
I think we did that.
It's a great pairing.
I think it worked well, actually.
It's because it's like one of those like bitter chocolate oranges you get at Christmas time.
Yeah.
Like foil. That's why I like it. Or New England IPA and tacos.
Nigel's a New Orleans guy. He loves oysters. Same pairing?
You can go classic. With oysters, you're going to either do Guinness or Cantillon Goose.
Okay. I could see a Goza doing that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So those are the two. So,
and if you can find a Cantillon.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
Awesome.
I got a Cantillon for my birthday from my friend Austin. That was a very nice surprise. So,
very nice.
Yeah, I was like, oh wow, and his mom made me cookies.
Oh,
I was like,
all the things.
Yeah, he showed up to curbside and he was like, I bought a case of your Hellas. Here's a Cantillon, and my mom made M&M cookies for you. And I was just like, what? Okay. Thanks.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. But again, thank you for coming on, Nick.
Yeah.
Where can they find us, buddy?
Well, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or really just all of your favorite podcast apps. And you know what else?
You've been listening to Beers with Nigel, a show about beer and other stuff, hosted by Nigel Woodbury and that other guy, Nick Parker. Beers with Nigel is poured for you by Dire Oil Graphics, providing bumper-to-bumper graphic design, promo products, and print services. Find them at direoil.com. Beers with Nigel is a proud member of the Fredcast Network and is available on all of your favorite podcast flavors. Find Beers with Nigel on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and ask Alexa to play the Beers with Nigel podcast.